I was in a really bad place. Like, I think for 8 months I woke up and was just devastated that I'd woken up. It's like you don't want to die at all. You just want the pain to stop.
In this episode, we sit down with Louise Mortimer, breathwork expert. She talks about the science behind how it works, how ice baths work, and how saunas work, and how contrast therapy works.
Like doing contrast therapy, or just sauna specifically, 3 times a week, your probability of having a coronary episode is reduced by 37%.
Why is it more important to breathe through the nose?
It filters the air, it makes it warm, and it makes it a little bit moist. When you breathe through the nose, we automatically use 30% less energy.
What is breathing to you then?
Breathing to me is...
It's absolutely insane how much you can actually do with your breath. This episode is not to be missed. I hope you enjoy it. So what was the motivation behind starting the breathwork personally, but also with the business as well?
Yeah, so breathwork for me was a big journey, I think, in my personal discovery. When I first found it, I was in a really bad place, like really, really bad place. You know, I was really struggling at work. I think I was off for a long period of time. And I actually found it through cold water therapy. Like, I actually went swimming outside. I'd been meditating for a bit using the Headspace app, you know, way back in the day. Did a bit, but I never really got that sort of like moment. It created like a bit of calm and it gave me nice space to just be with myself. But it wasn't until I started like with the cold water therapy that I went on a rabbit hole with that, and then found breath work, and then really started to explore like mindfulness in a sense. So then just sort of like resolved a lot of my personal issues, got off antidepressants for the second time through breath work, and then just sort of carried on learning about it and just delving into who I was really after I'd lost myself for a really long time.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then went back to work, everything's great, kept on like delving in. And then probably about 4 years ago, I really enjoyed it to the point where I started learning about it to take others through that journey as well.
Turning pain into purpose.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just that reconnection. I think when you go through struggle points, it's really easy to lose yourself and not realise who you are anymore. It's just sort of like a disconnection really from everything. Like, you're not connected to yourself, so you're not really connected to your friends, your family, your partner, all those things. It's a really easy, like, slippery slope. So if I can help people get back to that, so then that's that ripple effect. It's a really beautiful place to take people.
What is breathing to you then?
Okay, so breathing to me is, I think it's like connection, the main thing, to myself. It's a really strong tool, realising that it's not anything external, it's you. Like, you've done that. It's that empowerment thing where you can really create safety inside and trust for yourself and your body. No matter where you're going and no matter how fast life is hitting you, you can deal with it. And any sort of modality or whatever you're using, it can bring you back to just that baseline. And I think that's that. Not external, it's you. You're doing that.
Yeah, I love that. And also, I think you mentioned cold water therapy, and I mentioned about the lads on the previous episode. I was saying to them the reason why I like cold water therapy so much is because it's just you in there, and there's no external thought. It's just you on your own, there, in control. Because ultimately, and then obviously you know a lot more than me, but breathing is ultimately the only thing we've got control of pretty much all the time. And in an ice bath, the only way really that you are able to stay in there is if you control your breathing.
Yeah.
And I think from there, if you are able to immerse yourself in there, control your breathing and therefore control staying in there and just really be in the moment, then that's where all the positives come from after that.
Yeah, definitely.
There are a lot of reduction in stress, you know, and improvement in the mood, and there's just so many benefits to it, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say to people, there's nothing that's going to get you into your body quicker than the cold.
Yeah.
And it shows you exactly where you're at. You know, if you're a little bit dysregulated or your nervous system's, when you get in, you're going to feel it a lot more. But also, it's on the flip side of that. You know, it's that mind over matter. If you can control your breathing, if you can let yourself go to that heightened state where the breath's going, the heart rate's going, you're into, that state, but then you can pull it back into control, that's the power. Because the body doesn't know different stresses. All those out there, it just knows stress and stress response. So if you're getting into the cold regularly enough and you can pull yourself back into that regulation, that response to that stress, you start noticing stuff out in the world where, your body's controlling it for you.
Definitely.
And that's like just a huge strength. Like all the stuff that used to like really trigger you or stress you out, you're like, oh, that doesn't bother me as much as it used to. And it's a nice realisation, I think, for people.
I love that because I get, not really much anymore. I used to get a bit of stick online, on TikTok especially. People seem to have a real grudge against cold water therapy and ice baths, especially on TikTok, don't know why, but anyway. And I was like trying to explain in a video, like it's not a case of like, oh, look at me, I can get in an ice bath. It's like, it's just, there's real peace and tranquility. Once you get past that first minute, I would say, like the feelings that you get are just next level for me. And then obviously when you get out of it, the next 3 hours, you're just like,
it's that clarity for me. Like, I think if you can get past obviously like that sort of first bit, like you were saying, and you can really sit in it, and you maybe somewhere lovely, but it's just you and your body. It's just a moment, like it's just that complete separation from the noise. So you can just go inward and be like, cool, a little check-in. It's really powerful.
This episode of the Tom's Talks podcast is proudly sponsored by Unthin, the hair growth company that's helping people feel more confident in their own skin. From supplements to topical product, Unthin is deeply rooted in the science behind helping people with a healthy hair and scalp. You can use the code TOM20, that's TOM20 for 20% off at the checkout. Thank you to Unthin for supporting honest conversations around mental health.
Was there a moment when you started exploring breathwork that you had a realization of how much of an impact it had?
Yeah, I think in my own journey, like, I've hit a few really, really low points. And I think the moment when I'd really got consistent with not just like the day-to-day practices, but also the other work that I do, like in the practices which I engage with, like altered states of consciousness and deeper dives of breath work, when I started to realise that I was pulling myself out of this situation from nothing but myself, it was really, really sort of like that thing, and I really wanted to be consistent with that then. So I wasn't just managing like, everything that I'd been through. It was like that regulation on a day-to-day basis. So it was like across the board. Like I wasn't just like deep diving to work through like trauma and situations. I could hold myself on a day-to-day basis as well, which was really, really amazing. When when you've been in one of those places where it's so up and down.
Everything feels out of control.
Absolutely. Or it's all external and it's like, oh, I don't really know how to pull myself back into that place.
Can you elaborate on what you meant by the other states of consciousness?
Yeah, so I'm mixed modality breathwork, so I do like nervous system health, sleep optimization, things like that. So that's like day-to-day stuff. But then I work with other breathwork types, which is conscious connected breathwork. So the way that we breathe, it puts you in an altered state of consciousness. So when you go into that state, it connects with yourself so deeply, but it opens up your body to release any sort of stored emotions or trauma and things like that. So when I breathe like that, in my experience, it was, working through certain situations, and it can be quite physical. There can be quite a lot of emotion in there. That's both sides of the spectrum as well. So it's not just like the tears and the sadness sometimes. When we close that off, it's also like the joy and the happiness, and you get to really feel that connection to being happy when you've not really felt like that for a long time.
So just to unpack two sides of what you've just said there. First is sleep. I'm interested to know a little bit more about that from somebody that has struggled to sleep for a long time.
Yeah.
How would a breathwork session or a breathwork technique compare, and obviously explain on that, for somebody that's wanting to get into a deep state of sleep compared to somebody that's trying to uncover some previous trauma or work through and navigate that trauma through those different sessions.
Okay, so with sleep, if it's something like, you're struggling to get to sleep, you can do like down regulating practices, but that's like time under the belt. It's not just like one thing and then it's fixed. It can be like a situation where you're putting in like breathwork practices on an evening before you go to sleep. If you're struggling to get to sleep or you're waking up at like 2, 3 in the morning, those kind of things, it usually just means that the body's in a heightened state, cortisol's running a little bit higher. So that base level to get into those deeper levels of sleep are a lot harder. So it's just about consistently slowing the body down and getting that nervous system back into a more regulated place where you can access those deeper like REM sleep and things when you're getting to sleep.
So to interrupt you, I'm really interested about what you've just said there because that's happening at the moment.
Yeah.
So my wife's 16 weeks pregnant at the moment.
Okay.
And we both keep waking up, which is really strange, at around 3 p.m, 4 p.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Now I'm managing to get back to sleep and then she's awake then for like the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
For me and her, can you take me through a technique of what we can do to help with that?
Yeah, so 2 or 3, so basically I'll explain why you're waking up at that time. So people who wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, that's when our cortisol starts to spike in our body to wake us up at sunrise, 7, whatever time it is. If your cortisol levels during the day or your stress levels are a little bit higher, when you're coming to that first little spike, it's already higher than baseline. So it's spiking at that 2 or 3, but waking you up rather than gradually getting to that point. So it's just that. What you'd want to do is have a sort of a regular practice where you're bringing that body back into that baseline, and it can be a daily 10-minute practice that could really alleviate that. If you've got more time, you could do a morning practice and an evening, but it's also that consistency of practice because it's the nervous system. You want it across the board. And I normally say if people don't have time, we don't miss more than like 2 days. It's just that consistency with it, just bringing it back into that baseline. You can do tools and sort of practices in an evening, like when you do wake up to try and get back to sleep. And it'd be something like just a gentle practice where we extend the exhale. So it might be like a 6 in, 8 out, things like that. Because when we breathe in, our heart rate goes up. When we breathe out, our heart rate goes down. So when you extend the exhale, it brings that heart rate down. And then just extending that exhale. Yeah. And we try and keep them all through the nose just because that automatically puts us in that parasympathetic, which is our rest and digest.
So don't exhale through the mouth,
so,
all through the nose?
All through the nose if possible.
Can I try it?
Yeah, of course. So if you take that breath in, and then if we exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. Exhale. There we go. Inhale, we'll do a couple more. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. Really slow down this last exhale. Exhale, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Literally.
Yeah, I can see how that would work.
So it's just really about creating that capacity, because as humans, we're sort of chronic overbreathers. We breathe quite fast. It's in the top of the chest. Whereas what we're trying to do is get it nice into the belly, getting that diaphragm involved so that it's slowing it down. The slower the breaths, the slower the heart rate, and the slower the capacity for that nervous system to click in.
It was interesting when I did the episode with Stuart, he did a breathing exercise with me as well. And he said straight away, you're breathing through your chest.
Yeah.
And it was like trying to engage your core or not, like do it from your stomach. And I was like, I couldn't do it until we worked through it.
Yeah.
And now I'm consciously trying to do it through the stomach.
And it's just like those shoulders isolated. I think like when we breathe, especially like when you breathe through the mouth, like it's all in the top of the chest. Whereas when we're breathing through the nose, you automatically sort of engage that last like 30% and keeping those shoulders still and just being like, and it's all in the belly. But if you train that diaphragm, it just becomes like another muscle that we work with.
Just a quick one. Most of you watching this episode aren't yet subscribed. So if you want your weekly motivation from some incredible guests, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn your notifications on.
What's the ideas around mouth breathing? And why is it more important to breathe through the nose?
So when you breathe through the nose, we automatically use 30% less energy, because when you breathe through the nose, it filters the air, it makes it warm, and it makes it a little bit moist. So when it's coming into the lungs, it's automatically viable for the body to use that air. When we breathe through the mouth, you don't have any of that. It's cold and it's dry, so that when it gets to the lungs, it has to then make it a little bit warm and a little bit moist for it to go in. Fundamentally the easiest thing. Then there's the other side of it. When we breathe through the mouth, like I said, it's automatically top chest, so you breathe a little bit quicker because you're using less oxygen, like less air. And then when you breathe through the nose, you're automatically in that parasympathetic, so that rest and digest. So it's just a few different things that click it in.
What's the difference between, for example, the exercise we did there was in through the nose, out through the nose?
Yeah.
And I imagine there is other breathing techniques where it's in through the nose, out through the mouth.
Yeah.
What's the difference between those?
So I would always say if you're doing, say, regulation work, it would always be through the nose. Sometimes you can do sighs, which are really good because they're more sort of vibrational through the throat, which automatically navigates the vagus nerve, which stimulates the nervous system into the body. The other side of the breathwork practice that I use, the conscious connected breathwork, the altered state stuff, is all through the mouth. It's a circular breath through the mouth, so it's a little bit different, but that's more of an activating practice, so it is slightly more sympathetic driven, which switches the brainwaves.
What's the difference between sympathetic and
Parasympathetic. So parasympathetic is our rest and digest. Our sympathetic is our fight or flight. So everybody always thinks that the fight or flight is the bad one and the one that we're not supposed to be in. But what we want as human beings is that naturally fluctuating. So parasympathetic into sympathetic and then switching from one to the other.
Because fight or flight and through the mouth breathing, correct me if I'm wrong, would that spike cortisol?
So it wouldn't spike cortisol it would in the short term, but not in the long term, because it's like we bring it back into that. With the practices that it starts off slow, comes into it, and then goes back to slow again. So it brings it into the full circle.
It's absolutely insane how much you can actually do with your breath.
People don't believe me, it's one of those things where I'm always like through the breath and they're like, yeah, okay, cool, and it's like this thing that we have that is, you just change the dynamic, how you inhale, the length of the breath, how we change the dynamic of it has a multitude of different things coming into the body. And that's why it's so powerful, because when you do go through that journey and you do work through, maybe the deeper stuff like trauma, or you're just regulating yourself on a daily basis, it's you. You've done that, and it's, you attach to it a lot more. But sometimes people are just like, they don't believe that the breath can have such a big impact on you.
Yeah, I think it's incredible what you can do with the breath, but also, for example, sleep deprivation, people are struggling with sleep. The fact that you can just do a 10-minute exercise every day costs nothing, just little effort, but can have a massive impact on your sleep and therefore your mental health and your overall well-being. But then, as you mentioned earlier, the other side of it, when you're going into these other states of consciousness, and most mental health problems sadly stem from trauma. Yeah. The fact that you can do these different breathwork practices and uncover trauma and work and navigate your way through it, I think is insane, but amazing at the same time.
And I think the world's changing, people are seeking more information on why stuff's working. I'm very much like that. If you told me to do something, I'd probably do it for a little while, but I'd need to understand why it's doing what it's doing. Yeah. And that's why I really enjoy training. I did a breath science mentorship over a year where we went really deep into the science of the sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic, how the breath changes that, and how to navigate what people are going through as well. Because I think when people understand it, and like you're saying, they're seeking information, people are like watching way more podcasts and, reading a lot more about the science of why stuff's working. So I think if you can give that bit of information, that's where the longevity of practice comes, because people understand why it's changing and why it's working within themselves, rather than just like, do this and it'll make you feel better.
To elaborate on that then, what would you say to people that are doubting breathwork?
If people are doubting it, I think it's just one of those things that you have to come try it.
Yeah.
Like the altered states, like that's just something that, you can come and do, not just for trauma. I think there's a magnitude of things. Like for me now in my journey, I've used it to deal with things like that, but now I just use it for clarity of focus and really keeping connected to myself. So it is the practice. I think, understanding that it can have these profound effects, but it's one of those things that you have to try it. You can understand it and you can read about it, but until you've felt it and navigating that, that's when you can really understand it.
So for people that may be listening to this podcast that are maybe doubting breathwork, and you want them to experience it and try it for the potential benefits, what's one easy daily practice that people can start doing in the morning, maybe in the afternoon and in the evening?
Yeah, so generic practice, which is beneficial to everybody, is just an extended exhale. No pauses, no nothing, and they don't even have to count, just letting that inhale come in, that same amount of air, just twice as long or as slow as you can get it. If you were just cycling through that, and I say to everybody, before engaging with anything on YouTube, or I've got practices that I can send, just trying to really feel into your breath and your awareness of that, and picking one song. That's different for everybody. Everyone's got different musical styles, and it can be a 3-minute song just to start going with it, letting that air come in and extending that exhale. Can feel a bit not silly or confronting at first, because you're like, oh, this isn't doing anything. And then halfway through, you're like, wait a minute, those shoulders have dropped.
So for how long would you recommend that?
So like, just pick a song. Pick a song to begin with. It doesn't have to be 10 minutes or anything, just engage with one song. Because if you've got that same song as well, when you come to that practice, the body sort of remembers. And then as soon as you put that track on, it knows it's going to be resting, because it's constantly gone through that. It's muscle memory. It's the same as anything else.
So again, for the people that may doubt it, that are going to take what you're saying and implement it, what are the highlighted benefits of this particular exercise? So
this will slow down the heart rate, slow down the body, and create a little bit of separation for your body to rest in that moment. Because once you start slowing down the body, it gives the body and the brain capacity to just slow down a little bit and go, right, okay, I'm just sitting, I'm resting, and I'm coming back to myself.
Don't you think as well, especially in today's society, with the imbalances in our brains due to technology, heightened levels of cortisol through constant stressors, I feel like how beneficial that would be.
Yeah.
For example, I personally don't have any notifications on my phone.
Yeah.
You probably thought it's taking forever to reply. It's not because I'm rude. I just
No,
my partner manages my social medias and I don't have my notifications on. So
Yeah.
it's just for me, because I don't want to constantly be barraged by information and notifications. I want to be present like we are now. But a lot of people, I think I'm probably one of very few people that does that. Most people are constantly getting hounded by notifications every single day, and it's a constant state of alertness. But then also with the pressures of modern day society and work and just the way that life is, everything's a million miles an hour and everything's constant. So I feel like everyone's in a heightened state.
Yeah.
So I feel like breath work, especially the one that you've just explained, would definitely have a lot of benefits for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I think the thing that I notice the most in people is when they do start engaging with a practice, and that can be on and off, and you find something that works for you, specifically breath work, I'll speak on that because that's my thing. When you start realising that it's not external, you don't have to engage with anything outside, and you can have those personal boundaries where you can notice something, cool, and then you can carry on. That's a really powerful realization when you can regulate yourself and have your attention on yourself and control of your brain, really, to even notice those things or emails come in or whatever, and you can create that separation yourself and keep your attention on something else, which obviously you're working on. So yeah, having the notifications off are amazing, like that'd be incredible. But there are certain things that you just can't, you know, that's a physical boundary. That's, you know, that's sort of like an external control that you can change on. What the breath does specifically for me is I've got that control, but it's an awareness thing. I see you, but I'm not gonna let my energy go towards that. I'm doing something more important. So it's that, and it's creating that separation for yourself and how you navigate what you're seeing.
I think that's really powerful. I love that.
Yeah.
What is your morning routine? I'm really interested because I can, you know, you're a breathwork practitioner. You do it every single day. We've spoken about ice baths, saunas, and I know that your well-being and your mental health, rightly so, is incredibly important to you. And I know that morning routines sort of define your day, really, don't they? A lot of the time, I would say, win the morning, win the day.
Yeah.
What's a typical morning routine for yourself?
So coming from a sales background, I've had a lot of very strict sort of like wake up times. Now I understand my body enough, so I've got a very soft morning routine. So I don't set an alarm. I know when I'm going to wake up because I know exactly how long I sleep.
I don't even.
Yeah, so I wake up and it's not I wake up when I wake up. I know that when I go to sleep, I'll probably sleep 8.5 hours and then wake up at a certain time. So if I go to bed later, I know I'm going to, you know, wake up that shift. Normally wake up, I'll normally sit in bed. At the moment, I'm listening to a lot of like motivational YouTubes, you know, like, you know, it's just whatever comes up,
Sure.
If I'm honest. And it's like, you know, motivational speeches, things like that, because I'm in a phase now where I'm going through like a bit of a growth phase with my business. So I'm just like, okay, I want to listen to something, and then I'll either breathe before that or after, but I just take it as the day comes. If I feel like I need to breathe more and be present with that, I'll breathe first, be present with what I'm listening to, and then I'll just get up, normally do a little bit of stretching, and then a coffee. I'll hydrate first, but a coffee, yeah.
So I'm going to come on to the hydration and the coffee after.
Yeah.
But is the breath work technique that you would do is the one that you explained earlier?
Yeah, so
inhale and exhale slightly longer than you inhale.
Yeah, so
and
it
is that
depends.
through the nose?
Yeah, so I'll always do through the nose. So it depends. So I've got to the point in my practice now where I really listen to my body. If I wake up and I'm already feeling like a bit like unsure today, I'll do a down regulating practice. If I'm feeling like I'm waking up and I could do with a bit more energy, I'll do an up-regulating practice. So that's still through the nose, but they're normally a bit faster breaths. I'll normally be pumping the diaphragm, and it's a lot of sort of like that type of breath work.
Can you take me through that?
Yeah.
Please.
So that breathwork practice, so I use a lot of pranayama, which is a yogic breath. So with the diaphragm, you will take a breath in and fill it in. So just feel like it's coming out, and then it's pumping the diaphragm. So it's like that. So you let the air come in between, and you start off really slow to begin with. Mine are quite fast, so in the morning I'll be like that, and I'll do 30, have a little rest, do another 30 and have a rest. But while you're practicing, you can sometimes run out of air because you don't let the air come in between, so it's like a bit slower, so it's like that. And what that does, it sort of oxygenates the body and creates a bit more clarity. So rather than down regulating the body, I'm up regulating the body.
Cool.
Yeah. So it gives you the adaptation then, so you can really meet the body where you're at. So you're like, how do I feel? Do I feel a bit sluggish? Cool, up regulating. Do I need to bring myself back down? I'll do some down regulating.
And it's interesting you say that about, because I was going to ask you about coffee, because I love coffee. And I'm always very mindful of how much caffeine I ingest.
Yeah.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way of the breathwork technique you just explained could be a great way of increasing alertness without having to constantly resort to caffeine.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Definitely. Like, yeah, if you were having a practice like that, I know people who, you know, just don't have any caffeine at all. I really enjoy a coffee, and I think it's just one of those things where I'll have one or two. I'll really feel it, you know, when you've been in loads of meetings and you're like, oh yeah, I'll have another one. But then you're in your third one and you're like, too many. So I try and really regulate that. But yeah, you can, you know, change stuff out. It's just something that I don't see a detrimental effect of having 2 coffees a day. So I'll have at least 2.
I think I'm similar. I love just having a coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the normal habit.
Yeah.
But I did go through a period where I was having decaf because I was really trying to fix my sleep.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to eliminate caffeine altogether. But now I've got to a point where as long as it's, I mean, I don't know the exact figure, but I think anything before 12 o'clock,
Yeah.
it's not really going to affect your sleep that much.
No, and they normally say it's around 2 and it's all on that cortisol, you know, that flow of that. So
it's interesting because I look back now when I was like in my early to mid 20s, like I'd slam a pre-workout at 5 p.m. and then wonder why I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, well, there's 250 milligrams in a pre-workout at 5 o'clock. Like, I'm going to keep it, like, I'm not going to go to bed until 5 a.m. the next day. It's just, I find it fascinating that the older I've got, the more curious and almost obsessed I've got with what we can do every single day, that we can get the most out of our bodies.
Yeah.
So different supplementations, like different foods, breath work, cold water therapy, saunas. I just find it absolutely fascinating. Like, it's almost like, obviously you've got to have certain expectations of what the body can do, but like, what can you do each day to be superhuman?
Yeah.
Like, how can, especially from an entrepreneur like yourself, to somebody else who's, you know, entrepreneurial, like, you want to be at the top of your game. You want to have ultimate clarity, ultimate energy, and be at the best of your ability every day. So what can we do to make sure that happens?
And that's the thing, like, you know, I'm always looking at like human potential, like what is our full potential? And everybody's different, you know, like everybody's built different, everyone's got different goals, aspirations, family lives, lived experiences. And I think that is a very bespoke, unique thing for, you know, we can have all the protocols and they all work very differently. But yeah, like what is the optimal thing that you can do without it becoming an obsession to the point where that's, you know, you're not living. I'm really big on like longevity and biohacking. I find it really fascinating. But then you look at some people and you're like, well, you're wanting to live longer, but you're not actually living in the moment.
So the guy, Brian Johnson.
Yeah.
That's a debate in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I find the stuff that he's doing fascinating, and I, you know, take my hat off to him for what he's doing. But I'm sure he goes to bed at 7 p.m. every day.
Yeah.
It might feel amazing, and you know, like I said, full credit to the guy to take your hat off. But like, if that's what, and again, don't get me wrong, each to their own. Like, if he's happy doing that, then fair play. But you know, if you're just doing the same thing every day, going to bed at 7 p.m. But outside of that, you're not doing anything.
It feels like too much control. Like things like Brian Johnson, and there's another lady, Kayla Barnes-Lentz. She's very similar, but in a more, she doesn't take it to such an extreme, but she's the same, a lot of biomarkers, very similar structure, but she's in and around like the world, so she shows like that nice diversity of if you're travelling, how can we bring ourselves back into that control in that way?
More real life example.
But like I think with Brian Johnson, he's like with everything, it's the extreme of something. He's showing that if you do all these things, and then people can pick and choose out of that protocol that he's living by to take on, it's a little bit too far for me, but it's an incredible, you know, person to watch and keep an eye on to see what is the human potential. Like if we did everything under control, but you're not living really, not what I would class as living anyway. No.
But again, like I said, it's each to their own, isn't it? It's specific to everybody. But I think the older I get, so I'm 30 on Thursday, I think the older I get, the more curious I am to what can I do on a day-to-day basis to make me have more longevity, more energy, more clarity, more focus, better brain functions, and just perform better.
Yeah, and I think that's it, especially when you're like running a business and you're wanting to, you know, do all these big things and aspirations that you've got, because if you're, you know, running a business, you're clearly ambitious and driven, so that's always going to go into lots of different avenues, you know. And I think like having that clarity and having that potential, you do need to just find those practices that, you know, it might not be cold plunging. Like obviously I take a lot of people into the cold and a lot of people don't like it, but if you understood like the benefits of it, you probably engage with it. You don't have to enjoy everything that we're doing to gain that, potential, or just bringing yourself back into that baseline as well.
So again, for the people watching, we briefly spoke about it earlier, but what are the benefits of cold water therapy? Like the actual benefits, the neurotransmitters, the internal bodily functions and the mental functions of cold water therapy.
Yeah.
And why is it an important thing to do, not only for recovery, but for mental health?
Yeah. So when you get into the cold, obviously you go through that sympathetic into that parasympathetic, that fight or flight into that rest or digest, so it creates that fluctuation. So if you may be stuck in one side or the other, it gives that capacity for the body to pull it back. Afterwards, you've got like lots of other things like endorphins, dopamine. For me, when I was getting into the cold, it was the first time I'd felt my body in a long time. First time I'd felt that boost of those beautiful hormones where we're sort of going through, those endorphins and dopamine when you feel happy afterwards.
Yeah,
and if you can't connect with that naturally, it's a beautiful process to go through with the cold. Also, there's a lot of other benefits. Specifically, if you're doing contrast therapy, I'm really big on like the polarities of the heat and the cold. You're going into the heat, your blood vessels are dilating. That's why your heart feels like it's pumping like so much further into your chest. So if you're going from the heat, that expanded circulation system, into the cold where it restricts, and you're cycling through that dilation to that restriction gives an amazing elasticity to your cardiovascular system. It means your heart doesn't have to pump as hard. So then that cardiovascular benefit afterwards is incredible. So like I think the research says that if you're like doing contrast therapy or just sauna specifically 3 times a week, your probability of having a coronary episode is reduced by 37%.
Wow.
That's huge. Like, that's just like, why wouldn't you do that with the way the world is and, heart issues going on? So it's things like that. And then there's loads of other stuff, Alzheimer's, dementia, from heat shock protein, specifically from sauna. So if you can do them both together, it's a beautiful thing. Now we've got all these contrast centres opening. You can just get both benefits from the cold and the sauna in 1 hour, session. I think it's if you can add a bit of breath work in there while you're there as well, it's a beautiful trifecta to go through.
Well, what I tend to do is when I go into the ice bath, I will do in the nose for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So the only thing...
Is that box breathing?
Yeah, box breathing. The only thing with box breathing is sometimes it's, if you have got the capacity to do it, that's absolutely fine. But sometimes that bottom hold, when we've exhaled fully, basically that CO2 is rising in the body. So it can create a little bit of like oxygen starvation. So you might feel like you're holding it, but it's going through that. And if you can bring it back into control, I'd always say maybe do a triangle instead. So miss out the hold at the bottom, just do the exhale, inhale, hold at the top. Exhale, inhale, hold at the top. It gives a little bit of an easier capacity for the body. So it reduces that stress a little bit more. Because
I find as well, when you focus on your breath, when you get in the ice bath, obviously the first reaction of getting in is you want to get out. It's the fight or flight, isn't it? But again, focusing on your breath and being in that control, when you count 4, 4, 4, before you know it, you've already done 2 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that's it. The beautiful thing with the breath is, it's like that mechanism of it. Like with meditation, it's a lot about thoughts and the body, and it's easy to lose yourself in that or get like distracted. Whereas with the breath, you're following something. It's a count. So instantly your brain can't think because you're thinking about the count. It's hard to think about 2 things at once. So if you've got the count going, automatically the brain is like, okay, we're focusing on this, and then getting the benefits of that breath at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What is the length of time that you tend to stay in the ice bath for?
So I listen to my body. Okay, so I've got to the point now where some days it's 30 seconds, some days it's 4 minutes, some days it's in between. Basically, I think sticking to times, it's nice to have an awareness of the time, but 2 days today is not 2 days tomorrow. And it's easy to be pushing for a time when actually your body wanted to get out a little bit before. It's a little bit easier for men because your hormone cycle is it's on a 24-hour cycle, whereas women, it's between 28 and 31 days. So with us, our awareness and sort of attachment to stress is a little bit different. So when we dip in our cycle and our awareness of like the stress of the body, it's a little bit different. But nervous system wise, it's just, I say to people, and when I'm engaging with people in the cold, is start listening to the body. So what I would always say is wait till your breath feels a little bit cold. Wait till you've got that little bit of a shiver, stay in a little bit longer and then get out. If you can start to learn that, that's way more beneficial for your nervous system than actually trying to push for a 4 minutes, or I did 5 minutes yesterday, so I'll do 5 minutes today. No, it's like learning. It's not when I want to get out, it's when your body's ready to get out.
That's interesting. I would have never have known that.
Yeah.
I normally, whenever I get in, I'd always try and aim for between 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And the time when I mentioned earlier about when I was doing the breath work, I did realise how quickly it was actually going.
Yeah.
And I looked and I'd done 4.5 minutes and I was like, bloody hell.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you've said that, and I'll definitely tell that.
Because it's just interesting, like bearing it in mind, because, although men can engage with the cold like every day and it's normally pretty standard to how you're engaging with it, you don't know how stressed you are. You've got lots of other stuff going on, and actually pushing yourself to stay in for that time. The body might be going, you know what, I needed to get out, or it's just a quick blast just to create that clarity rather than pushing for times. And 2 to 3 minutes is a good gauge. Like, you're not going to have a detrimental effect, but people sometimes go, well, I stayed in 10 minutes or, 15.
What are the additional benefits from somebody like myself that would do 2 or 3 minutes to then if one day I decided to do 10 minutes or 20 minutes? Is there scientifically any evidence to show that there is additional benefits, or is it pointless?
No, I'd say it's actually got a detrimental effect, like staying in
Right.
just that long, like, because you don't really know, the body will just go into like a bit of shutdown. The nervous system will just be like, okay, well, we're just gonna, detach from this, and you're staying in the cold too long. If you're staying in the 2 or 3 minutes, you'll normally get that nice rebound. Whereas if you're staying too long, you're pushing yourself into that sympathetic, and it can just drive it to have a freeze point up there.
Surely those lengths of times, that's when you're going to risk a case of pneumonia or hypothermia or whatever.
Yeah, so like obviously if you're lowering your body temperature as well, hypothermia is such an easy thing to do, and that's just that regulation. I always say to people as well, like if you're doing, again, sauna and cold plunge, if you're going into the cold, not just rushing straight back into the sauna, like having a little bit of time in between to let the body come back up to a bit of baseline temperature and then get in the sauna, just because that switch can be too opening. That's when you can get a bit lightheaded and stuff. If you stayed in the cold too long, you feel really cold, so then you rush straight back into the sauna. It just creates a bit of a fluctuation where you can get a bit lightheaded.
Interesting. I will remember that. As you mentioned about obviously getting a sauna from Alex.
Oh yeah.
Getting the ice bath at home and a sauna for the new year. I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
I feel like there's, in my opinion, there's no better way that I will be able to start my day than going for a run, getting in the sauna, getting the ice bath, and then I feel like you feel pretty amazing after that.
Oh, definitely. I think it's one of those as well. It's not just like the achievement of it and that mental bit like ticked, okay, I've started the day right. You're also starting with these things which are going to make you really present, really like clear for the day. And then you've got that nervous system which is, working in your favour.
Is there a risk of too much dopamine, of those combination of things? And I asked this question, I don't know if you'll be able to answer or not, but I'll ask anyway. Listen to Andrew Huberman quite a lot, and he's very mindful of habit stacking with too much dopamine in the morning.
Yeah.
And his example was, going to the gym, smashing a pre-workout, listening to music at full blast, like you're hitting your body with too much. Is there a risk of, obviously you get the runner's high, doing a 5-6K or whatever it might be, then getting the sauna, then getting an ice bath? Is there a risk of too much, or would you say that's that?
I wouldn't say in those capacities that would be like a bad side of dopamine. When people talk about sort of like dopamine dysregulation, it's us usually humans looking for quick fixes. You feel a certain way, so then you go to like scroll through your phone, or you're constantly looking for some dopamine in that way, and it's the quick wins, the quick, you know, things which are a bit more negative. I wouldn't personally say that going for a run and then a sauna in the morning is going to create any kind of like fluctuation dopamine, like where you're having too much. It's the quicker stuff. Whereas like the gym, the cold and the sauna, the cold specifically, it's that uptick of dopamine over the next 6 hours. Where, you know, have you ever heard of people, and I hate this analogy, where they say, oh, it's got the same dopamine kick as cocaine?
Do you know what?
I absolutely hate when people talk about this.
We've literally just had the same conversation.
Yeah.
Two lads before. And you're like, did you know that it's the same as doing as line of coke? Like, literally said the same thing.
Yeah, so I hate that analogy just because, well, I think it's one of those things that is easily relatable to people, unfortunately, in the world.
Yeah.
But it's the same. It's 600, you know, with that dopamine. But with the cold, it'll keep on ticking up, whereas
It goes,
straight dab, that's where you keep on going.
as much as, you know, it's not a great analogy, but for people that are escaping, because people take... Obviously, there's differences to somebody going out at the weekend and then people that get addicted to it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it is an escape because of the levels of dopamine that you get from it and how amazing it makes you feel in that very moment. Obviously, the repercussions after.
Yeah.
But I think it could be an important analogy for some people that are going towards this recreational drug for that quick fix to say, look, you will feel as good if you do this, but you're not going to have the detriment to your health.
Yeah, I think if it's phrased in that way, but I think a lot of people just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this
Don't
is
give
this,
any
this,
context.
that. No context. So I think like with the context, like if you're switching it out or if you're dealing with addiction in a way, then yeah, it can be a really nice thing to switch out for it, you know?
Just say it again, sorry. What's the amount of dopamine?
300%. So it's an uptick of 300% for up to 6 hours.
So doing a line of cocaine,
300%, yeah.
300% increase in your dopamine.
Yeah.
Doing
Ice
an
bath,
ice
it's
bath
the same, yeah.
for 2 or 3 minutes,
Yeah.
equally 300% increase in dopamine.
Yeah, but obviously with the cocaine it drops off, and that's why people go
And then
back.
you don't get back to baseline.
Yeah,
do
you don't get back to baseline. Whereas with the ice bath, it'll keep on upticking that dopamine for the next 6
And then
hours.
with, not to go too much into recreational drugs,
No.
but I just find all this stuff absolutely fascinating. And then the reason why you get a come down or you feel rubbish is because if you have a level of dopamine, you know, serotonin, etc., that obviously if your baseline is there, you take a line of cocaine, it goes like that.
Yeah.
But then it comes down below baseline and your baseline level drops. I don't exactly know the figures behind it, but I watched somebody that was an expert the other day, and it was like it takes months
Yeah.
after doing that to actually get back to the level of dopamine baseline.
Dopamine's the same. Like it's whether it's, you know, things like recreational drugs in that way or phone addiction. Phone addiction is a huge one. It's so easy. Like if people looked at my screen time, they'd be appalled. I think it was like 10 hours the other day, just because I've constantly got it on, playing in sessions as well. So my phone's always on, so I don't really know the true
There is a difference
size of it.
though, like, let's be fair, like my screen time last week was ridiculous because I was in the car and I had Google Maps on.
Yeah.
But my social media screen time, geez, I think sometimes it's a little bit higher if I'm trying to find something to post and I'm looking at it with Amy, but I deliberately find myself sometimes, I'll be on Instagram and I'll be on Explore page and I'm not going to go into it, but I do a bit with crypto. And I've been looking at different hairstyles, so for some reason that's all my...
that's your Explore page.
That's my algorithm at the minute, and I'm scrolling through and I'm like, I'll just throw my phone.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah, and I think it's really easy with that, but it is just that thing where our bodies can tell us when we feel uncomfortable. So rather than like sometimes feeling what we're feeling, it's easy to go to that phone. So that dopamine fix, and it can be a distraction or anything like that, is so easily done. That's why people say, like, you know, starting your day scrolling on your phone, because you've already gone to that quick fix dopamine. So you're going to be seeking that all day then. And then it just becomes that thing where, you know, you don't want to just sit still in silence. It's got to be something, and then you're sort of looking for it. And that's, you know, you can bring that back, but you have to go through that rebound phase as well of like any kind of addiction, really.
Absolutely. I purposely put my phone on charge downstairs when I go to bed. And when I go downstairs, obviously I'll just check it to make sure nobody needs me for whatever reason. And then my routine is I will go straight to the gym, hydration, supplements, gym, or if I'm not training for whatever reason, I'll do my stretches.
Yeah.
Because then I think, like you said, you're not gone for that quick fix.
Yeah.
You set the correct intention.
Yeah.
You started the day, and then I find, as sad as this might sound, it's like it's a little bit more rewarding when you do finally go and check your phone.
Or you like taking note of things which, you know, it's not just like random shit. Like, you know, you're actually looking for stuff which you're interested in, not just like, oh, I've already seen all that other stuff. Now I'm just on some side of Instagram, which is, you know, cat videos, which are, you know, fun, but, you know, you're just there for the, you know, for the state of it. So I always say, like, in the morning, like, I'll not go on my phone for as long as I can, really, because you do notice it when you've gone to it first thing in the year.
Absolutely.
It's just that easy thing to go to.
I feel, I mean, I've got a baby on the way that's due in June, and I'm absolutely over the moon. I can't wait to be a dad. But I'm not terrified because my wife has very similar values to me.
Yeah.
And I know I'll be an amazing dad and she'll be an amazing mum. So I know they're going to be brought up with so much love and everything that we can provide as parents. But I'm very aware of everything, like the motivational speaking and, you know, the podcast, the habits, the mental health, the mindset, you know, and I know that will be definitely implemented into my parenting skills. So I'll be making my kids aware of their screen time.
Yeah.
And when we're sat around a dinner table, not letting them have an iPad, but having conversations and all, you know, trying to implement positive things. But how many other parents and kids are not aware of these things that we're talking about? And I'm just frightened to death of what the future holds for kids growing up in today's society.
I remember, like, when I was, like, growing up, you know, it was like MSN, you know, like all that kind of, like, era. But, you know, I'd hate to think I don't have children myself, and it's, you know, it is a really tricky thing to navigate. I think the world is going to change quite quickly on the way that we approach our phones and how much, you know, because I feel like I speak to so many people with the work that I do, and we're more connected than ever and way more lonely and disconnected than ever. So I think it is just those things where if we put those values, and you're probably going to instill this, like, presence of human connection, I think it's going to really do a full circle, specifically with, like, AI and stuff, where you value, like, this way more than, you know, your phone. But I think it's just one of those, like, it is the internet these days, and unless you've got restrictions on the phone, it is on morals and values, on what you engage with and instilling that from a young age.
Absolutely. I have an app called Opal where it blocks me from going on my social media.
Yeah.
And Amy hates it because every time I'll be showing her something, like, fucking app's gone off again.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, this is the whole point.
Yeah, literally. I've seen a few things come out, actually. I follow a guy on LinkedIn. He's just bought, he's a startup, and it's like something that you put on your phone, but he's putting it into things like gyms, cinemas, music events, where they give them out and then you can't go on your phone at all, because, you know, you probably see it in the gym in between sets. You know
what, I'll be open and honest. I went to the gym yesterday, and I'm not a big drinker at all anymore, but I'd been the night previously. It was my 30th birthday party with a few close friends in my family, and I'd had a few drinks, got back at 1:30. It was nothing crazy, but I still felt, I didn't feel 100% yesterday, and I went to the gym. And normally, I'll make a very conscious effort of not checking my phone between sets, and I'll just have a really good workout.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find my AirPods, and
instant disaster.
I checked.
I'm going home.
I checked social media, and normally, like, most sessions I have are incredible because I make a conscious effort to make them so. But yesterday, it was shit.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst gym sessions I've had in a very long time.
Yeah.
And I put it down to the fact that I didn't have my AirPods. No, I didn't.
It's probably both.
Checked my socials between sets.
Yeah.
And again, it just distracted me from the point of what I was actually trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Like, we don't realise sometimes, like, how, you know, when we do feel uncomfortable in the body, when we're hungover or we've not had as much sleep, how easy it is to go to that distraction of the phone. you know, don't want to feel this, like this feels uncomfortable, so I'm just going to distract myself over here. And I do hear it a lot in that, where it's like you can't be present without some sort of distraction.
Yeah.
So when the body's way more uncomfortable, like in that sense, like for you, like a little bit hungover, probably feeling that, didn't have music, so you're going to seek something else, and it's scrolling on the phone.
Yeah.
You
Very
outsource it. You outsource that presence to something else rather than
Very true.
this and the body.
Very true. We can't sit in solitude anymore, can we?
No, that's been one of my big practices this year. Personally, I've had a really, really hard year. Not only am I building a business, but there's just lots of stuff has gone on just to really test me in that. But one of my practices was I'm going to sit with it. Some grief, some sadness, some real like deep, heavy stuff. And I just sat in silence with it, in stillness, like a bit of a baptism by fire. And it was really, really uncomfortable. But I think what I'm trying to do specifically in my practice is like being able to be present with myself in any kind of eventuality, the good, the bad, you know, because I think if you can sit with those uncomfortable times when you're not feeling great or when there is a lot of sadness or grief there, you open up that emotional spectrum where you can be with your body in both sides. So for me, if I could sit in stillness and silence in that sadness and really meet it where it's at, not fight against it, but meet it, I'm seeing way more now that happiness, that gratitude, that joy. I'm feeling it a lot deeper as well. So you're opening up that emotional spectrum where you can engage with stuff without the distractions and being way more present with life. You know, don't get me wrong, I'll still spend, you know, like an hour here and there, but personally for me and what I take people through when I'm doing like my coaching or with practices on longer journeys with people is get used to being with yourself. Get present with yourself, not trying to avoid those, you know, if you're going through a rough time or you've maybe not dealt with something, sit with it, learn to sit with it. And that's what I do with the breath, really, just trying to create that capacity to do it. But yeah, it's just that uncomfortability. We try and get away from anything uncomfortable. Like it's really easy in the world now to do anything but sit and be present. And it's hard, you know, but once you learn it and once you understand it's you versus you and not fighting it as much, you can just be really, really present with yourself.
This podcast is fueled by Prep. Prep is a nutrition-first meal prep company that allows me to have high-quality meals without spending hours in the kitchen. As a business owner that prioritizes their health and fitness, Prep allows me to hit my goals for the day without sacrificing loads of time. My personal favorite is the Cajun salmon, but if that's not for you, then there is plenty of other options as well, including vegetarian and halal. And the best part, you get 10% off your order when you use the code TOM10 at the checkout. That's TOM10 at prepuk.com.
What are the things that have been challenging for you this year?
So, first year of being self-employed was the main thing. So just rolling through that. I didn't realise how much I would have to grieve, like my old career. Like I worked in medical sales for 10 years, so high pay sales, driving 2,000 miles a month, you know, target driven, all that kind of stuff. And then loved the job, you know, loved my team and things like that. But then changing into well-being, which is a completely different pace, completely different human being. So it's like grieving that version who was on a very steep development plan and going on that and then being like, wow, okay, that version of me that I'd planned, like when you go through a breakup, I suppose, you grieve like that expectation of what the relationship might have looked like. So I was like grieving like this, you know, world that I'd created in my body and my mind in that way. So rolling through that, went through a really heavy breakup in February. My dad got really sick, nearly like he was in hospital for a little while. That was really hard to watch because it's my dad, you know.
Of course.
He's, thank God, fine now. Lost 2 cats, which I don't know, like losing pets is a hard thing. It was just every month there was something really personal that really took a knock.
All that in the space of a year, though.
Yeah.
A lot.
And then trying to build a business that's around well-being and stress and burnout, and I'm in the background like, whoa.
But imagine though, and I always say this to people when they think that life's tough and, you know, what's the point in doing X, Y, Z? For example, you have very good habits. and you implement them day to day.
Yeah.
Imagine what this year would have been like if you'd not implemented those habits.
Yeah, and I think that's it. When I was talking about my earlier journey, like when I first got into breathwork, like I was in a really bad place. Like I think for 8 months I woke up and was just devastated that I'd woken up. Like devastated that I had to do another day. And it was really, really, well, I think at the time you just, you know, I'm a grafter, like always have been, worked for my dad's. Yeah, like, you know, my dad instilled that in me from a very young age. Like he owns a shutter and blind business in Bradford. Nice. So I was making roller shutters at 14, you know, fabricating them on the shop floor with the lads. Like that was my work ethic. So I really put it down to that, and just this drive to have this career. So that was the thing that saved me at the time. But yeah, it was real hard. Like I always ask that question, and I know you speak about like suicide like a lot, like on the podcast, and it's like, what was it that kept me going? You know, because I was so sad. I ask that question all the time. Like, what was it about me that I didn't make that decision one day? Like, what is it about people that one day they just change their mind about that hope that they've got or that energy they've got?
Do you ever think that, for me, the experience with my brother was, I don't think he actually wanted to die.
Oh.
I think the pain of staying alive was too much.
Yeah.
Do you think for you it was the pain of staying alive was less than the pain of going?
Yeah, I think that's it. I always say this to people, you know, and I'm very open and honest about like suicide ideation and living with it for, you know, longevity of it over time. And it is just that, it's like you don't want to die at all. You just want the pain to stop. And you don't see how anybody on the planet, let alone yourself, could stop that. Because it's constant, it's just in the mind, and it's that drive. So yeah, it's just that thing, like there was always just this hope, and then that's when I found the cold and it just changed. Like
so how
that
long ago was this? Sorry?
That was about 8 or 9 years ago, yeah.
And it's been a journey ever since.
Oh yeah, massively. Like through the breath and through my own journey, through all of that deeper stuff at the time, because I think when you live like that every day, there's such a compound effect on the body that it does take deeper work to live a life that, you know, like we were saying, like that human potential and just going through.
Do you not think as well that on the other side of that, like for me, ice baths, meditation, going to the gym, good nutrition, just well-being in general and physical health, with the way that social media is, people expect results straight away.
Yeah.
And I literally said this, I had an amazing day on Wednesday last week. I'd just done my biggest talk at Urban Outfitters head office, which is incredible. And I'm looking to January now and I'm fully booked. But in January will be the 7th year that I've been doing motivational speaking. Even 2 years ago, like 2 years ago, for example, not that it's all about followers. I didn't even have 10,000 followers on Instagram, and now I've got over 350k on, you know, the various platforms.
Yeah.
And it's like it takes time, consistency, hard work, and it's not about social media followers. I'm just saying as an example, but that anything that you want to achieve in life, wherever you want to go, for you, you're eight years into this journey now, and I'm 7 years into mine. I imagine that 8 years ago, if you know, however old you were then, could look at now. Would you have imagined to get to this point? No
way. Like the stuff that I've found resolution within myself and the stuff that I've worked through, I thought I'd, you know, take to old age. And I hear that a lot about people, like stuff that they're holding, you know, stuff that they've not even shared with people, you know, these things that get us into these places, these darker places. You'd have never told me that. I thought I'd just be an anxious, depressed person and I might just get to where I could function, you know. But through like the breath and the cold, like the cold's just taught me so much about myself, my resilience, you know, my strength. And I see that in others as well when they really engage with it or get out of the comfort zone. Like some people are like, oh, I could never do that. And then you take them through it. That alone is so powerful. Like you can't give that to people, that stuff that people have to do themselves. And I think like in my journey, like specifically like with the trauma, like what I'd been through maybe in the past, it doesn't have an emotional attachment to me anymore at all. Like I have delved through my shadow, my subconscious, and really gone like, what is affecting my day-to-day life? Because you think about like your subconscious and what you've been through, whether it's early life or throughout your life, it's affecting the conversations you have, the engagements you have. So if you can like just delve a little bit and really find that clarity, it does like have an emotional like, you know, spectrum of it. So yeah, it's just nice to find that baseline with it.
How old were you 8 years ago, if you don't mind asking?
Oh, I'm 39 now, so I was like 31.
So if you could go back to 31-year-old Louise and have a conversation with her, what would you say to her?
What would I say? That I know that you're strong and keep listening to that hope that you're clinging on to.
I love that.
Yeah, because it's just that. It's just about being curious and knowing, I think that there's always been something in me from a very young age that I'm built for something better. I'm built for something bigger. And whether it was my sales career where you put everything into that, or whether it's this and this purpose, like I truly believe like serving people and making people feel that connection to themselves, that's my purpose now. And I've always been one of those people where my work is my life, whether it's someone else's or mine. And now, luckily, I've created something that's mine. So yeah, if I could explain that to that person, that 31-year-old me, I think she'd be astounded. And she probably won't believe it, to be fair. But that's it, isn't it? When you're in those places, you don't quite believe how good it can get.
Louise, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Love this conversation. Thank you.